My son said, "You're moving to a care home and I'm selling your house." I didn't resist and signed the papers. For 2 weeks, he and his wife celebrated their successful deal. When the buyers came with the money, the notary showed them my surprise. Good day, dear listeners. It's Bill again. I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end, and let me know which city you're listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled. My name is William Bill Pierce. I'm 67 years old, and I've lived in this house for 35 years. I built this place with my own hands back in 1989 because my wife Linda wanted a house that would last generations. I believed her. Every beam in this place still holds true, which is more than I can say for some people. Linda died 18 months ago. Cancer got her. I became a widower at 67, and the house became mine completely. We'd always owned it together, but after Linda passed, I got everything transferred properly. My name only, for the first few months after Linda died. My son Greg was pretty good about checking on me. Called on Sundays, came for Thanksgiving with his wife, Amanda. I made Linda's stuffing recipe, and Amanda said it was wonderful, though I noticed she didn't eat much of it. Small thing, but I filed it away. Then the new year came, and Greg started asking different questions. Not, "How are you doing, Dad?" but "What's this place worth now, with the market the way it is?" He'd say it like he was testing something. "You know, Dad, a house this size is a lot of work for one person." Amanda would nod along like she'd been practicing. I told him the truth. I was managing fine. Linda's life insurance and my pension covered everything. I wasn't struggling, but Greg didn't seem interested in that part. In February, Amanda started coming with Greg more often. Something about the way she walked through my house bothered me, like she was measuring. She'd look out the kitchen window at my deck and say, "This really is valuable property." Not like she appreciated it, like she was calculating it. She asked me once if I'd ever thought about simplifying my situation. I said no. She smiled like she was checking something off a list. Then March came and Greg sat down at my kitchen table, the same table where he did homework for 12 years minus, and told me I was moving to Golden Years Assisted Living. Not asked, told Dad, "We've talked to some people. The place is nice. You'll have your own room, activities, medical help right there. And honestly, this house is just too much for someone your age. It's not practical." Amanda sat next to him with her hands folded, playing the reasonable one. "We just want what's best for you, Bill." Maybe she believed that. That's the scary part about liars. Sometimes they fool themselves first. I looked at my son. I looked at my kitchen with the oak cabinets I built myself. I thought about Linda and 35 years of Saturday mornings in this place. And I didn't say anything, not yet. But something changed inside me right then. I'd raised this kid. I knew how he looked when he wanted something. What I saw on his face wasn't concern for his old man. It was math. He was doing calculations. I wasn't angry. I wasn't scared. I was awake. Completely awake for the first time in months. After they left, I sat at that table for a long time. I don't get emotional easy. Linda used to say I had the feelings of a concrete mixer, and she meant it as a compliment. So I didn't get emotional then either. I just let what happened sink in. I went through it like I always do problems. What's wrong? What are the facts? What can I do about it? Here's what was wrong. My son thought I was something to be sold, not someone to be respected. My house, Linda's house, our house, 35 years of our lives had become dollar signs in Greg's head. Golden Years wasn't kindness, it was storage. Here's what the facts were. I'm 67. I'm alone. Greg's my only kid, and he just told me my life as I know it is over. But here's the other fact, the one Greg forgot. This house is mine. Completely mine. My name on the papers, my signature needed to sell it. I'm not confused, I'm not helpless, and I never agreed to anything. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay there listening to my house. I know every sound this place makes. And I thought about what I could do. I could tell Greg no and dig in my heels. But I'd seen how he talked to me, patient and managing, like I was a problem to solve. A flat no would just start a bigger fight. He'd bring in lawyers, maybe doctors. When you're old, people questioning your brain is dangerous, and I wasn't stupid enough to think my own son wouldn't use that against me. I could call a lawyer right away, but if Greg found out, he'd get careful. I needed him to think he'd already won. I needed him sloppy. So lying there in the dark, I made my choice. I'd play along. I wouldn't fight where he could see it. I'd give Greg exactly what he expected, a tired old man who'd given up. I'd sign his papers and visit his nursing home and tell him it looked fine. I'd let them celebrate. And while they were celebrating, I'd work, The next morning, I drove to the library on Maple Street. I've always liked libraries, quiet, organized, full of information that belongs to everybody. I asked the woman at the desk for anything they had on property law in Ohio, estate transfers, power of attorney. She gave me a stack without asking why, which I appreciated. I spent 4 hours reading, took notes in the little notebook I keep in my shirt pocket. By the time I left, I knew things I didn't know before. There's something called a life estate, lets you transfer a deed but keep the right to live there till you die. There are protections in Ohio law for elderly property owners. Things Greg probably didn't know about. I also knew I needed help. Not just books, a person, a real estate lawyer who didn't know Greg. I found one in the phone book, Victoria Stone. Her ad said real estate, estate planning, elder law, serving Columbus families for 25 years. I called from the parking lot, got an appointment for Thursday. When Greg called that night asking how I was processing things, I told him I was thinking about it. Said Golden Years seemed like a nice place. He sounded relieved. Like a man who thought the hard part was over. I hung up and sat in Linda's chair, and I thought, Greg, my boy, you made a big mistake. You thought quiet meant giving up. Victoria Stone's office smelled like coffee and old wood. She was maybe early 50s, no nonsense, with the look of someone who'd spent 25 years listening to families fall apart without losing her patience. She shook my hand firm, didn't talk to me slow and loud like some people do with old folks. Talked to me like my time mattered and my brain worked fine. I told her everything. Linda's death, Greg's visits, Amanda measuring my rooms, the conversation at my kitchen table, what I'd read at the library, what I was afraid of, and what I planned to do. Victoria listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet a minute. Then she said, Mr. Pierce, you came in here better prepared than most people with law degrees. Let me tell you your options. Here's what she told me. Since the house was completely mine, Greg had no authority to sell it. None. His talk about practical arrangements meant nothing legally. I could just say no and that would be it. But saying no wasn't my only choice, maybe not my best choice either. Victoria confirmed what I'd read about life estates. She told me about something called a Medicaid-compliant trust that would protect the property if I ever did need long-term care. And she told me about something else. A way to end Greg's scheme so completely there'd be nothing left for him to try. I could put the deed in a trust with someone else as the beneficiary. Not Greg. We talked for 90 minutes. When I left, I had a real plan and another appointment to start the paperwork. 3 days later, I got proof that Greg wasn't just being pushy, he was lying to me. Victoria had run a title search on my property, just routine stuff. What it showed was this. Someone had already contacted 2 real estate agencies asking for market analysis on my house. The requests came from Gregory Pierce, calling himself the property representative. There's no such thing. I never gave Greg power of attorney. He wasn't my representative in any way. He just told these agencies he was, and they believed him. They sent him papers saying my house was worth $425,000. I sat with that number. $425,000, the foundation I poured, the cabinets I built. 35 years, Victoria called it misleading conduct. I called it what it was. My son was already trying to sell my house behind my back. It wasn't criminal yet, just inquiries. But it showed me what Greg was willing to do. And it showed me that $425,000 was more important to him than whatever he felt for his old man. The next Tuesday, I signed the first papers in Victoria's office. Didn't tell Greg. That night, he called asking if I'd thought more about Golden Years. I said I had. Said I was coming around to the idea. The room in their brochure looked comfortable. Greg was warm, relieved, pleased with himself. Said he was glad I was being sensible. Sensible. I thanked him like always and hung up. Slept better that night than I had in 2 months. Here's how the plan worked. I'd keep playing along. Act cooperative. Sign whatever Greg brought me, or pretend to sign it. Make them think I'd given up. While I was doing that, Victoria was preparing the real paperwork. Transfer of my property into a living trust with me as the only trustee. The beneficiary would be the Red Cross. Linda and I always supported them. Greg wasn't named. Amanda wasn't named. Nobody in my family was named. The trust had Victoria's special touch. Any sale needed not just my signature as trustee, but a confirmation letter from Victoria's office sent to the title company 72 hours before closing. Without that letter, no legitimate title company in Ohio would handle the sale. We filed the trust papers on a Wednesday. The deed got transferred that same afternoon. As of Wednesday, March 15th, Greg couldn't legally sell my house even with my signature, because my signature on his papers would mean nothing. The house didn't belong to William Pierce anymore. It belonged to the Pierce Family Living Trust. Greg had set up a signing meeting for Friday with some real estate lawyer named Daniel Foster. I planned to show up, be cooperative and pleasant right up until the moment the door opened on what I'd done. But Wednesday evening, same day the trust got filed, Greg showed up at my door without calling. Hadn't done that in years. He was alone. Came in with his coat still on, not using his patient voice. "Dad, I need you to tell me what's going on." I offered coffee. He said no. "Someone told Amanda you've been going to a lawyer's office downtown, a real estate lawyer." "Why are you talking to lawyers, Dad? If you have questions, you come to me?" "You come to me?" That's the line I'll remember. Like I was a kid. Like my questions about my own house were something for him to handle. I told him I just wanted independent advice. Said I was getting older. Sometimes legal language confused me. Wanted to make sure I understood what I was signing. He didn't buy it completely, but he couldn't afford not to believe me either. The alternative, that I was ahead of him, wasn't something he'd planned for. Then Amanda's voice came from the doorway. She'd been waiting in the car, came in now, and whatever pretense they'd been keeping dropped. She told me straight out that if I was thinking about complicating the property situation, I should understand it could create problems for everyone. She used the word family a lot, but she meant their interests. Said an elderly man making legal decisions without consulting his son might raise questions about his judgment, about his capacity. There it was, the word I'd been waiting for. Capacity. I looked at Amanda, looked at Greg, who didn't contradict her, and I said clear as day, "I want both of you to leave my house now." Silence. I think it surprised all three of us. Then Greg tried again. Calmer, hands up, reasonable face back on. Nobody was trying to upset me. They just wanted to make sure I was protected. I told him I was perfectly protected and I'd see him Friday at the appointment. They left. I locked the door, called Victoria, told her what happened. "Good," she said. "That means they're worried. Worried people make mistakes." Friday morning, I got up early. Put on the blue suit I wore to Linda's funeral. Got my briefcase with all the papers Victoria had organized. I'd slept fine, eaten breakfast. I was 67 years old and never felt more ready for anything. Victoria was in the lobby when I arrived, shook my hand, said quiet, "Everything's ready, let's go." She had a bigger briefcase than mine, everything tabbed with colored markers, the kind of preparation that tells people you've done this before. Greg and Amanda showed up at 10:03. Greg in his good suit, Amanda with her hair done special. They looked like people coming to a celebration, which I guess they were. They'd been celebrating for 2 weeks. The buyers came at 10:10. Young couple named Henderson, nervous as hell. They had their own lawyer and a cashier's check for $420,000. We went to the conference room. Daniel Foster, Greg's lawyer, sat at the head with his papers and his professional act. Guy looked like he expected to be done by lunch. Started presenting the purchase agreement for me to sign, asked me to confirm who I was and that I owned the property at 1247 Cedar Lane. I confirmed who I was. Then I said, "Before we go any further, I'd like to introduce my attorney, Victoria Stone. She's got some information about the title." Foster stopped. Looked at Victoria, looked at Greg. Greg's face did something interesting. Victoria put a single paper on the table, explained in her clear, professional voice that the property at 1247 Cedar Lane had been transferred to the Pierce Family Living Trust on March 15th, with William Pierce as sole trustee. Explained that the trust required her signature on any sale papers submitted to the title company at least 72 hours before closing. Said no such letter had been sent because no closing had been authorized by the trustee. She put the trust document on the table, put the title search next to it, put the filing confirmation from Franklin County right in the center where everyone could see it. Foster was reading. His face wasn't surprise so much as the horror of a lawyer, realizing he'd screwed up. He hadn't run a title search, just took Greg's word he had authority to sell. Hadn't checked a thing. He'd sat across from my son, believed his papers, built a whole transaction on the idea that some 67-year-old widower would just go along. That idea had just cost him more than his morning. Greg stood up. "This is... Dad, what did you do?" "Protected my property," I said. "You can't just... You didn't tell me." His voice dropped the manager act completely. Sounded like himself for the first time in months. Like the scared kid he used to be when he got caught. Amanda said sharp, "Can this be contested?" Foster said, careful, backing away from his client already. The trust appears properly formed and filed. The terms are enforceable. There has to be something. Greg looked at me like I was a stranger. Not angry. Exactly. Desperate. Dad, we can work this out. Talk about it now. Now he wanted to talk. With the check on the table, buyers shifting in their seats, lawyer reading papers that had just blown up 2 weeks of celebrating. Now he wanted conversation. The Hendersons' lawyer leaned over, spoke quiet to the couple. The Hendersons stood up, picked up their check. The wife looked at me. Sympathy maybe, or recognition, and they walked out without a word. Door closed, soft behind them. Foster started collecting his papers, trying to get out clean. Greg watched his buyers leave, watched his lawyer pack up, and the celebration that had been 2 weeks in the making just dissolved. Greg, I said, voice steady as a level. The house is mine, always been mine. Will stay mine as long as I choose to live in it. Foster wouldn't look up. I picked up my briefcase, thanked Victoria, walked out of that conference room and through the lobby into March sunlight in Columbus, Ohio. Sky was blue, air smelled like winter ending. I stood on the sidewalk breathing. Hadn't realized how much I'd been carrying till then. My shoulders dropped. Sun felt warm. Down the block, a delivery truck was making rounds, 2 pigeons arguing on a fire escape, city going about its Friday business. Ordinary and continuous, and I was standing in it, whole. Greg didn't call for 11 days. In those days I cleaned house top to bottom. Not because it needed it, but because I needed to. Fixed a loose board on the deck, replaced weather stripping around the front door. Behind the workbench I found a little wooden boat Greg made in shop class when he was 13. Had his name burned into the side. Held it a long time before putting it back where it belonged. Not on display, back behind the bench where it had been for 30 years, not asking for anything. On day 12, Greg called. Not the careful voice or the managing voice. His real voice, which I hadn't heard in months. Said he wanted to apologize. Said he'd behaved badly, said he was sorry. I listened to the whole thing, didn't interrupt, didn't make it easy by saying it was okay before he finished. He needed to say all of it. Then I told him, I believe you're sorry, Greg. And I believe things became clear this spring about who you are and what you're willing to do. I can't unknow that. He started to say something. I said I've talked to Victoria, updated my estate plan. The trust stands. Whether you're a beneficiary of anything I leave depends on your choices going forward. Not my anger. I'm not angry, but I'm clear about things now. Silence. Then he said, Are you going to Golden Years? No, Greg. I'm staying in my house. Going to finish the projects your mother and I started. Going to live my life. His voice was different when he answered. Smaller. Okay, Dad. That wasn't the end of consequences. The world doesn't tie up neat just because one conversation ends. Foster filed complaints against himself before anyone else could, trying to control damage, declined to bill Greg for the full job. The Ohio Real Estate Commission got a call about Greg representing himself as property representative to those agencies. Victoria made that call. Nothing criminal, but the notation exists. Those records surface at bad times, Victoria told me. The Hendersons found another house 2 months later. 3-bedroom on the north side, better fit anyway. Their lawyer told Victoria I was glad. They'd walked into my story carrying hope and a check. Deserved their own good ending. I updated the trust. Victoria wrote new papers that spelled things out clearer. Red Cross stayed a beneficiary, aided others, Ron Martinez's grandson's college fund, scholarship at the trade school where I learned carpentry, money for elder rights, the group that helped me understand my options. Each addition felt right. Each one said something about who I was and what mattered. That's what an estate plan should be, minus month, but a picture of your values. Greg wasn't cut out completely, but his share got smaller. The trust spelled out conditions for accessing anything. He could read those when the time came or start living different now. That was the choice I left him. Not forgiveness exactly, maybe never that completely, but possibility for something better if he earned it. I kept Amanda's casserole dish. Good size, no point wasting it. Used it next month to bring soup to Nancy from my woodworking class when she got sick. Said it was the best chicken soup she'd had in years. Didn't mention where the dish came from. Some histories are better left alone. By July, the house felt like itself again. Started taking that woodworking class Tuesday evenings, always meant to, never got around to it. Wasn't particularly good at it, but enjoyed the doing. Nancy, the teacher, had strong opinions about grain and finish that made sense to me. Started having coffee with her before class, dinner after sometimes. She became one of the people I think of as mine, without either of us planning it that way. Took a trip to Nashville Place, Linda and I always meant to see. Walked along the river in September heat, listened to music at bars with ceiling fans. Sat by the water one evening, watching light turn gold. Felt something I hadn't felt in months. Just present. Just there. Visited Ron Martinez and his wife in Cincinnati. Sat on their porch evenings. Talked the way old friends do, not needing particular subjects because being together was the point. Slept 8 hours every night, deep and dreamless. Ron said I looked 10 years younger. Told him he was biased. He said that didn't make him wrong. My life had gotten small after Linda died. Now it opened back up. Not to what it was. Linda wasn't there and I didn't pretend otherwise. But forward into something I was building instead of just inheriting. Greg and Amanda had spent money during those spring months they didn't have yet. Amanda put deposits down, told friends about property situations getting resolved. When the money didn't come, there were arguments. Amanda's father, practical man who'd built his own business, wasn't understanding about loans called in early. Greg and Amanda managed to pay back what they borrowed, but it required sacrifices. Vacations canceled. Car lease not renewed. Gym membership dropped. Foster's reputation took hits in the quiet way professional reputations do. He didn't lose his practice, but the quality of his clients shifted toward people who asked fewer questions. Greg lost something too. Hard to name exactly what. The smooth way he'd moved through the world, maybe. The certainty that things would work out because they always had, that got a crack in it. I saw him twice over the summer, brief, careful conversations where he was trying to find the version of himself I'd recognize. Didn't make it hard for him, but didn't make it easy either. He came in August, alone. Amanda didn't come, which told me something about how things stood between them. Sat at my kitchen table, Linda's table, my table, and didn't try to manage the conversation. Talked and stopped and started, like people do when they're really trying. Said he thought about his mother, thought about choices he'd made and what they said about who he'd been becoming. That part I believed. Some people slide into greed gradually, like bad posture. Don't notice till someone holds up a mirror. Made coffee, sat across from him, listened like a father does when he hasn't stopped loving his child, but has stopped thinking love means giving up himself. Talked for 2 hours. Nothing got resolved and everything got acknowledged. Sometimes that's the best kind of resolution available. He didn't ask about the trust. Think he understood some things can't be negotiated. The trust would say what it said. His choices would say what they said. The space between those was where something better might grow if he chose to tend it. When he left, I stood at the door watching him go. Thought about Linda, about 35 years, about foundations that hold. The house was solid and quiet, and mine. So that's the story of the spring I almost lost my home and didn't. Here's what I know now that I knew before, but deeper. Respect isn't inherited, and quiet doesn't mean giving up. A man who doesn't speak isn't a man who agrees. He might just be a man making plans. If someone in your life has mistaken your patience for weakness, remember this. Sometimes patience is just preparation wearing a disguise. What would you have done? Fought back loud or found a quieter way? I'd like to know. Leave your thoughts below. Your stories matter. Some of you probably know this kind of hurt better than you'd want to. If this meant something to you, stay with me. There's more coming. Thanks for listening.